This is Jewish Spotlight, a weekly television program presented by Chabad Lubavitch of Long Island, featuring various aspects of modern Jewish life and Jewish culture. Now, here is your host, Rabbi Tuvia Teldin.
You know, there are many issues that in life we have questions about and we like to learn about, and we like to find out the wisdom of our sages through the ages. And there are many ways to find out what that wisdom was all about. We could read from the books, we could study the Talmud, we could go into the Kabbalah, we could explore the great depths of Jewish wisdom. But there's another form of education, which is a beautiful form, I think somewhat perfected by the Hasidic Rebbes and by the masters who knew how to touch the soul and knew how to be able to get inside of a person's heart in order to be able to really bring out the best. And the way they used to do this, and the way which has been emulated by many, many thousands of teachers throughout history, is through a great story. We know about the power of a story. We know how stories can really touch a person in a way that intellectual ideas could never begin to touch a person. We see it in the Chicken Soup series. We see it in many series of books that are out today. And we have with us today a couple who's done something very unique, which I think you're going to really enjoy hearing about. They, during their engagement, decided they want to write a chicken soup book. And they did it. And at the wedding, they distributed chicken soup to warm the neshama. And if you don't know what the word neshama means, you're going to find out very soon. So without further delay, I want to introduce to you Pesach and Chana Burstyn, who have written this wonderful book. Pesach and Chana, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you for inviting us.
We're glad to have you on board, and I have read the book. It's really quite amazing, and I really give you a lot of credit. I don't know how, as a young couple, you decided all of a sudden you were going to do this. We're going to find out about that. I just want to show everybody a little bit of what the book looks like, and you could tell us a little bit of what's inside of it. How did you come up with this idea in the first place of writing a book?
Well, actually, we were flying on the way to getting engaged in New York. After being in California, we were dating in California. We decided to get engaged.
Right.
So on the plane, we were brainstorming as to what type of gift we want to give it at our wedding. And we decided that throughout the years, we've been collecting different stories, short sayings, things that...
Both of you have been collecting beforehand.
Well, we learned that after a while that we've both been doing this. I've always had a soft spot for stories. I love stories. When I was in school, in yeshiva, whenever I heard a story, I would write it down. And stories, I loved stories, and I always wrote them down. So I figured, it would be a great idea to give out something. So my wife said, yeah, how about something like a chicken soup for the neshama idea, or for the, to warm the neshama idea.
First of all, tell our audience what a neshama is.
Neshama means soul.
In Hebrew.
Means soul in Hebrew.
So did you have any idea taking this concept from the chicken soup series? Because today you have so many chicken soup variations. I was just in the bookstore the other day. I saw chicken soup for NASCAR racers, for lost sister-in-laws, everybody you can imagine has a chicken soup written for them. So how did you get permission to use chicken soup? Is there any legal problem?
Well, the legal problem, there was no legal problem because I cleared it with the Chicken Soup Enterprises to see whether our name would be an infringement of their copyright.
Okay.
And since the wording of our book, Chicken Soup to Warm the Neshama, it's not on their legal alley, so it wasn't an infringement. But I did want to clear that out. I didn't want to have any problems.
Now, the stories are really beautiful. They're very moving, and they're all filled with a lot of wisdom. And how did you approach this as far as putting all this together? Because I know you played a very key role in making this happen.
Well, these are not just any stories, and we specifically did not want to do just inspirational stories, because inspiration is a beautiful thing, but sometimes it's lost as fast as it's found. So we wanted specifically stories that each one of them will lead a person to a deed or to refine a character trait. And so each one of our stories has a title, which is its theme, and that's something that we hope people will actually take with them from the story.
Interesting.
They're all short and they're to the point. So it was definitely hectic because our whole engagement was only 8 weeks. That included bridal registries and gown appointments.
8 weeks, okay.
Traveling back and forth from California to New York and
just
getting ready.
Just for our audience, two things I want to tell people. Number one, it is a custom in Lubavitch weddings to give out a gift. at the wedding itself as a memento of the wedding. And second of all, we do believe in short engagements, because once you're engaged already, we don't want to waste any time. You go right to it, make all the arrangements, and get married. That's right. I wouldn't even ask how long they were dating for.
6 weeks.
Okay, very good. So you put out this book. Now, what kind of reaction did you get at the wedding itself?
At the wedding itself, the first reaction we got was, we took a long time taking pictures. So the chicken soup was already served, and people were getting edgy. So we gave out another edition of chicken soup, but this time it was a book. So that kept them a little bit busy. But the response was enormous. People loved it. People really liked it. At the wedding, people gave a response. But again, no one's going to really come to you and talk to you about, show you your book here at the wedding here.
Right.
This is a story I liked. But after the wedding, it was phenomenal. People were calling all the time, asking for copies.
Really?
We printed 1,100 for the wedding. We gave out only about 600 at the wedding, so we had a lot left over.
Yeah, a wedding
we did
of
that.
600.
We had
Small wedding.
It was in Buffalo.
We maxed
downtown
the hall.
Buffalo.
Okay.
We gave out about 600 at the wedding, and after we intentionally printed extra because we knew people
Right.
we would want to give it out to friends who couldn't make it to the wedding or send to people and so on. But people would call all the time, ask for copies, and we gave. And after a while, we couldn't give out anymore. So people said, so why don't you reprint it? Why don't you do something in a larger way? And because of such a great response, we decided to do so. So we changed the cover. We added on this beautiful cover, which is actually my wife's dishes on the front cover.
Oh, very nice.
And we designed it through a friend.
I hope he likes your chicken soup.
Yes, we actually made that chicken soup. My husband made the matzo ball.
So we got the cover design. That has a story itself, the whole idea of the cover or whatever. But we got editors. We got it professionally edited, and we printed a lot of them, and we actually sold out in 6 months, and we had to reprint.
Very nice.
So it's had a real positive response. People love it, and it's been really
Now,
nice.
you've been on somewhat of a book tour. I know you've spoken in different areas. You had a very nice article here in Jewish Week. It talked about the book. It was a very, very positive response. What kind of reactions are you getting in different places where you go on your book tour in order to be able to turn people onto the book?
Well, this weekend we're heading to Buffalo, New York.
Okay.
It's my hometown.
Fine.
To grace an audience there about our book. We've just gotten all types of responses. We've gotten a lot of emails from people, phone calls. We have our email and our phone number in the book. So we've just gotten a lot of, gotten bulk orders, people that just buy one, they want to buy 50 more to give out to their friends.
Very nice.
Schools have ordered them to give out as gifts. Different organizations, many dinners, people that are having dinners for different organizations. And they're all over. They're not just in America, but they're also on an international level. They're being sold and distributed.
In Judaica stores as well as Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
Right.
Have you? You can get it in Barnes & Nobles also?
Yeah.
Really? So you've contacted a distributor?
Yeah.
We've contacted the distributor, and
Very nice. Have you thought about translating it to any other languages?
people have actually called us. Someone called us from Brazil. They wanted to do it. We didn't
nothing yet.
initiate to do it yet,
Right.
but some people
Let me ask you a
have
question. The
asked us.
power of a story. How do you understand it? I mean, what do you obviously have a tremendous connection to stories, and you see the power of a story. Very easy reading. I mean, tremendously easy reading. Goes very, very fast. But each story, as you say, really has a message there that you can stop and you can think about. Even if you take one story a day, you could really have what to think about for the whole day concerning that story.
It's actually made to take one at a time.
That's the way you would
That's
prefer it,
that's what I
instead of
prefer. Instead of just reading
reading
through the whole
right
thing.
through it.
Right.
But I'll share with you briefly 3 ideas that
Okay,
I think
please.
is the soul of a story, the secret of a story. The first idea I think is a story is objective. It's very difficult to receive advice or to be chastised by somebody else and be told you have to change here, you have to improve here. It's very, we put up firewalls and we start rationalizing. He's not talking to me, he's talking to somebody else, because it's hard to take it, with your finger pointed, But a story is objective. We hear a story about somebody else. We even laugh or we cry. We make we've made a judgment on that story, but then we say, hey, what about me and my life? And then we realize that not the same details, but there's very similar situations to my life that maybe now I could see that it should apply to me.
Mhm.
So it's objective, and we could make a judgment and apply it to ourselves. That's
Interesting.
one idea. A second, which I think is important, is the fact that stories, we all remember stories. Stories are very easy to remember. Let's say, for example, just the way we store information, it's very hard to remember a bunch of details at once. But if we get to the core of the idea, then the details follow.
Right.
For example, a license plate number. Or a license plate number. You know, if I tell you my license plate is BRM 4687, it's very difficult for you to remember. But my favorite is the one I saw in Woodstock, New York, Mensch. You know, it's easy to remember. Or even a web address. A web address is a bunch of numbers, really. Once you type in the browser a website name, you'll see at the bottom left in the corner it says connecting to site 001-110-216-859.
Right.
But if I go tell you, you know, you want to see where my book is available, check out website 216-897-290. You're not going to remember. But if I tell you chickensoupneshama.com, you remember, because the way we process information is we remember not through the details, but we remember the core of it, and the details follow. A story, we remember the core of the story. There's a message, there's something there that touches us, and then we remember the details afterwards. So a story is very easy to remember.
Right.
That's
I
another
can tell you
thing.
from personal experience, whenever I give, let's say, a sermon or a talk on the Sabbath,
People remember the
people
stories.
remember the story. I could talk for who knows when. I think it's the greatest sermon I ever gave. Find out a week later, do you remember anything from that sermon? Well, you told a nice story. I remember the story. That's really good, because the story, like you say, it has a certain power to it.
And last is that the real point of a story, or the soul of a story, is what the story teaches me and how it could be applied and internalized to me in my life. An interesting insight, which didn't make it into this book for some reason, it was in the first book, we'll put it in the second, was about the word history. In Hebrew, there is no word for history. It's actually historia or something. It's really the English word with an Israeli accent, but there's no word for history. That's because Hebrew, which is based on Lashon HaKodesh, the holy language, the language of the Torah, Judaism does not believe in history, because history is two words, his story. Judaism, Torah, is not a storybook which tells us his story, something that doesn't have to do with me. If it's history, and if I don't learn anything from it, what does it have to do with me? So that's why he doesn't believe in history. If it's something which I could apply to myself, something which I internalize, something that teaches me, it's not history, it's my story.
Mm-hmm.
So really, Hasidism actually teaches that everything we have to ask the question, ubechein, and therefore what? So I heard the story, I've seen this, I've read this, I laughed, I cried. So what does it help me? You know, inspiration comes and goes. A lightning could illuminate a dark room, but it's dark as fast as the light came. You know, we should learn from Thomas Edison, who took a light bulb, and he took a lightning, and he learned how to transform it into energy. You know, he took a moment of light, an inspiration, and transformed it into energy. So we have to ask ourselves, so I heard the story, I liked it, great. So now what? How does it affect me? What can I do with that story?
I think it's a very important point, because too many people are into, as you said, Chana, getting inspiration or being inspired. But the real test is, how do you take that inspiration and translate it into something practical? Too many people are looking at it as a drug that shoot them up and be able to be on a high temporarily, without realizing that the real challenge is finding the tools to be able to apply it to day-to-day life and make your life better. And I like the idea in the book also, where under each story there's really a message that can be thought about and it can be applied to a person's life.
Which is actually
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is actually the goal of what we intended in this book. Other than, other books which are inspirational and talk about beautiful things is all great. It's all fine. But we wanted to use a book which, they were short stories with lifelong lessons. Each story was a potent, strong message which, when internalized, could actually, it's no longer someone else's story, but it could be my story. Not just a story that's nice and comforting, but it actually has a good lesson I could learn from, to practice and to learn from.
Chana, do you have a favorite story in the book?
I do have one.
Yeah? Okay.
I'd like to read it.
Okay, fine. I'd love
This
to
is a
hear
fun
it.
story, but it has a very deep lesson. This is called Use.
Use?
Use.
U-S-E. Okay.
U-S-E.
Okay.
Once there was an adolescent camel that would pose questions to its mother insistently, as all children naturally do. Mother, why do we have a hump perched on our backs? Mother replied, my child, these humps prevent hunger and thirst as we trek through on long journeys through the dry desert. We store rations of water inside our humps to quench our thirst. But mother, why do we have long eyelashes? Oh, son, those are to keep the sand in the desert from ruining our eyes during sandstorms. This protection allows us to continue traveling. And what about our awkwardly shaped feet? Aha, they support our legs from sinking into the soft sand. This enables us to walk more easily and quickly. Finally, frustrated and confused, the young camel cried out, "So what are we doing in the Bronx Zoo?" So the reason I like this story is because I feel it's my opportunity and responsibility to look at the people around me, whether it's my husband, my son, my family, my friends, and try to help them to develop their potential and to, just like this is called use, for them to use what they have and to be a camel in the desert, not a camel in the Bronx Zoo. And whatever talents they have should be used and should be developed, and I should help them do that. And I guess that's everyone's responsibility. So I like the story a lot.
Okay, sounds good. Pesach, do you have a favorite story?
Sure. One of my favorites is titled Credit, which is a story about a businessman comes to his meeting of the year, which was going to determine a lot of his income throughout that year. So he wanted to come early and get a parking place and be there on time, actually even be there early to impress people, impress himself. So he comes early, but the parking lot is full, and he's very annoyed. So he's driving around, trying to find a parking place. It's 10 minutes to a meeting, he still can't find a parking place. So he says, God, if you help me find a parking place, I will donate 10% of my earnings to charity. But still, no parking place. So he goes around and around and around. It's 3 minutes to the meeting, and he's really, really, really anxious to get out of his car. He says, God, 15%. Still no parking place. 1 minute to the meeting. He says, God, if you help me find a parking place, 30% I will give to charity. As soon as he finished those words, the guy right in front of him pulled out, and a parking space was available. So he turned to God and he said, God, forget the deal. I just found a parking place. The previous Rebbe talks a lot about tsar Hasidim. Hasidim who follow out of pain. In other words, they come, they only come to God because they're in pain. They only ask for blessings because they need something. But they often forget to report or to pray or to thank God for something they have received that was good, something that was happy for them. So this story drives home that point. It's one of my favorites.
Interesting. I think I remember reading that story, and on the bottom, I believe there's something about rationalize, that it's rational lies.
That's right.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So caught my attention. Let me change the subject a little bit, if you don't mind. I'm just curious if you could share with our audience a little bit about being in Crown Heights. You're a young married couple. Of course, we know there are hundreds of young married couples. And we've done a lot of shows here about shlichut, about people going to different parts of the world. We've had representatives from China, from South Africa, from Hong Kong, and all over the world. And people have seen a little bit, just in their own experiences, how Lubavitch is all over the world. I think there's a certain curiosity about how is it and what is it about Lubavitch and these young couples who are ready to literally sacrifice everything as far as the comforts of being in a community and be able to take a position, going out to Siberia, going to godforsaken places all over the world. And there's a curiosity in the Jewish world and the non-Jewish world. What motivates a young couple to really have that tremendous dedication to go out and do that? I hate to depart a little bit from the book. We'll get back to it, but I just want to give our audience an opportunity to hear firsthand from somebody who's going through that decision-making process yourself.
First of all, it's not separate from the book. It's the ultimate goal of the book, shlichus. That's number one. Number two, it can be broken into a few parts. There's growing up in Crown Heights, which I did. There's living in Crown Heights, which we do now. Yes. My wife is from Buffalo. So I guess I'll start from growing up in Crown Heights.
Okay.
Growing up in Crown Heights, well, first of all, it was beautiful. I loved it because it's my hometown. It's where it's where I was born and grew up. But it's due largely to I grew up around the Rebbe, and growing up around the Rebbe, to put it in short, was just that you were living next to a person who made Judaism look beautiful and attractive. Something that you just there was no question you wanted to be a part of. Anything spiritual, anything that's good, and you just automatically had you were drawn to something, as special as this. And just, being in the yeshiva, seeing my parents who are Balei Tshuva, they returnees to Judaism, and, seeing they always emphasize the beauty of living a religious life and a Hasidic life. So there was a certain viewpoint, a certain warmth, a certain beauty of just living in a community like that, which also shared in the Rebbe's vision of that the whole world should ultimately see the beauty of Hasidism, of Hasidic teachings and doing good deeds and all of these things. So growing up in a place, being soaked up with such warmth and such a nice atmosphere, you just want to be able to share that.
Good.
And go out into the world and sharing that.
Can I comment on that?
Please.
It's true, I didn't grow up in Crown Heights near the Rebbe, but I grew up in Buffalo, New York. And one of the reasons I feel it's so important for us to have God willing, a Chabad house, a center of outreach, is because my family was not religious. We were very traditional. But about 13, 14 years ago, we came into contact with Chabad of Buffalo. And through all the wonderful Chabad emissaries there, my family slowly transformed to become a Chabad family ourselves. And I watched my parents go from a secular lifestyle to embrace the Jewish Hasidic lifestyle. And
that's quite a transformation you saw.
It is. And we all did that. I was younger. But the joy my parents have day to day and living as Jewish Hasidic Jews, it just doesn't have bounds. And I see how much they did for our family, and I hope that we'll be able to do the same for other families, to go out and to show people the light and the beauty of Torah and of Judaism.
Very nice. And of course, the driving force, as you mentioned, is really the Rebbe's teachings and the Rebbe's great Ahavas Yisrael, his tremendous concern and love for humanity and for the Jewish people all over the world, to the point where there'd be no limits on what it would take in order to be able to express that love and that concern. And that's something that people find very mysterious, very mystical almost, to be able to have such a great degree of dedication. And I find in my work, being out here in Long Island many years, that many people are even jealous, and they tell me that they wish they had that level of dedication. They wish they knew what it meant. Growing up in Crown Heights, as you said, you're in the midst of it all, so it's the natural way of everyday life. And this is something that is really a gift, which we thank God for every single day.
Another thing, a beautiful thing my wife told me when we were dating, or we were gotten married, she said that when we were discussing the concept of shlichus and going on shlichus, she said, listen, there are so many people in the world, so many law students becoming lawyers, and so many medical students becoming doctors, but who else to become shluchim if not somebody who is Lubavitch, who grew up near the Rebbe, who has a passion to do something like this?
Right.
So why shouldn't we?
Right.
As if it was simple, and this is
all
what
right.
we should.
Well, listen,
we should be doing.
Not to say it's not challenging. We have friends that are going to far out places. There's no schools for their children. Getting kosher food is really difficult. The support system, not having friends around, but it's something that our friends that are out there and they're meeting Jews and they're helping them to build Jewish homes. They said it's all worth it. Even it's self-sacrifice that they see when they see their children doing more commandments and they are bringing cultural Judaism into their home. That's what makes the self-sacrifice possible, I think.
Right.
And,
all right. Well, thank you for giving us a little insight as far as that's concerned. Just to get back to the book also, do you want to please share with us the phone number where somebody can call if they have a request for the book, or they perhaps want to ask you a question about the book?
Sure. The book, you can check on our website to see where the book is available. It's Chicken Soup Neshama, NESHAMA.com. And you can also call us at 718-735-6696. That's 718-735-6696.
All right, very good. And you have an email address also, I understand?
The email address is info@chickensoupneshama.com.
That's a good website. All right. Are there plans for a second book? And if so, what would be the difference between the first book and the second book? You're looking at each other now as if you're going to decide on
There's definitely plans
on the show.
There's definitely plans for a second book, but we're not into fillers. We don't have a certain amount of stories and then look for fillers. When we have enough stories that we find and we feel are good, powerful stories that that fit the title of our book, then we would go for the second volume. We do have a file on our computer, and we are constantly searching for stories. We're constantly living them.
How do you feel you can affect the neshama? How do you feel that your book is, and will affect people's souls? Hannah, have you had experiences where you feel you really touch somebody in their kishkas, in their innermost person?
I think that everyone, each person individually relates to different stories and has an effect from the book in a different way. I can read you an email.
Before you read the email, I just want to share one idea with you,
Sure.
which is a friend of mine who's a public speaker once told me, how do you know if an audience really understood what you said and internalized what you said, instead of just being inspired, which can come as fast as it went? So he said, if somebody comes up to you and says, that was a great speech, I love you, then you know that he was inspired. What could happen with the inspiration, I don't know. But if somebody comes to you and he says, that was a great speech, now I can appreciate my mother more than I did before, or now I love my sister more than I did before, then you know that he's really understood what he said. So some people, there's been a lot of emails, a lot of response. That was a great book, great title, great cover, great story. I've used this one, I've used that one. But this email in particular kind of shows how this person wasn't just like a great book, but something deeper than that.
Good. Hannah, could you read it for us?
Okay, we received this email in the summer. It reads as follows. I'm writing to express my thanks and appreciation for the book that you have written. I received this book as a gift from a function that I attended in South Africa last week. This function was for an organization called Women of the World. It raises funds for both Jewish and non-Jewish education in our country. I was delighted to see quotation by Rabbi David Hazan, as he is my very special rabbi and boss in South Africa. I am currently going through a difficult time in my life as I am involved in a divorce. At this low point in my life, I have found enormous strength and courage from the stories and sayings contained in your book. This book has been an inspiration for me to face each new day with hope and commitment to Judaism. With love, signed, a lady from South Africa.
Very nice. Well, listen, that makes it all worth it.
It does.
Very good. Well, listen, I want to wish you a lot of success in your book and in your endeavors to be able to join the Rebbe's Army as far as going out to some place around the world. I hope you have tremendous success, and I'm sure your book will help us as far as being able to make that happen.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you very much.
Hatzlacha on the second book. And for anybody out there who's interested in perhaps ordering the book, again, go up on the website. It's Chicken Soup Neshama, NESHAMA.com. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
In the meantime, anybody out there, if this young couple, while they're engaged in 2 months, on top of all the preparations for the wedding, could do what they did, I think that there's something in your agenda that you could probably do also to make this world a better place, to bring Mashiach closer, to try to help your family, your community, bring more light in the world. Never feel too overwhelmed. We'll see you next week, the Jewish Spotlight. Have a great week.
Mashiach,